Do you believe in a curse hidden behind the radiant smiles and magical nose shaking that once captivated the world? Behind the dazzling glamour of Bewitched lie lives besieged by cruel fate, where pain and loss silently gnaw away at the faces we once loved. Time, like an irreversible magic, has changed that cast in ways no script could have predicted. Some are still enduring life, but others have faded into oblivion, leaving a haunting void whenever we look back. In this video, we will delve into the true names, ages, and hidden aspects of the current lives of this legendary cast. Prepare yourself, because this is not just a journey of revisiting their beauty, but a confrontation with the harsh reality of time. Please try to watch the entire video, because the most heartbreaking moments are in the final seconds. 1. Elizabeth Montgomery. Elizabeth Montgomery, born April 15, 1933, became a television icon as Samantha Stevens in Bewitched, 1964 to 1972. With one tiny twitch of her nose, she turned magic into something warm, domestic, and unforgettable. Samantha was not only a witch hiding in suburbia, she was a woman trying to balance love, freedom, and identity. Montgomery died on May 18, 1995, at the age of 62. Her final chapter was a heartbreaking testament to her strength. Elizabeth succumbed to colon cancer just 8 weeks after her diagnosis. She had ignored the flu-like symptoms for months to finish filming a project, a sacrifice that touches the soul of every fan. She passed away peacefully in her Beverly Hills home, choosing to spend her last moments away from the sterile walls of a hospital. It is a detail that surprises many. The woman who commanded magic on screen faced her own mortality with a quiet, very human bravery, refusing to let the world see her weaken. By 2026, her physical legacy, an estate once valued at $20 million, is managed by her children, but her true wealth is the nostalgia she anchors. She didn't leave behind a fleet of flashy cars, but a collection of performances that defined an era. Elizabeth Montgomery remains the queen of the movies for television, a golden memory of a time when magic was just a nose twitch away. 2. Dick York. In Bewitched, 1964 to 1972, Dick York played Darren Stevens, the nervous, loving, and often overwhelmed advertising man married to the magical Samantha. Darren wanted an ordinary life, but York made his panic, frustration, and tenderness feel human. He was not just the man reacting to magic, he was the husband trying to hold a strange little family together. Born on September 4th, 1928 in Fort Wayne, Indiana, York died on February 20th, 1992 in Grand Rapids, Michigan, at the age of 63. His final years were marked by severe health struggles, a serious back injury from filming. They came to Cordura in 1959, led to chronic pain and dependence on pain medication. During Bewitched, his condition worsened until he left the series in 1969. After Bewitched, his acting career essentially ended. He fell into obscurity and financial ruin, but his marriage to Joan Alt remained his greatest triumph. They were married for 38 years until his death, a rare story of unwavering loyalty in the storm of Hollywood tragedy. By 2026, Dick York's legacy isn't measured in a net worth, which was nearly depleted at his death, or a collection of luxury cars. His legacy is the laughter he gave us and the selfless work he did while in pain. To remember him is to realize that the most magical person on that set was the mortal man who refused to give up on others, even when the world seemed to have forgotten him. 3. Dick Sargent. Dick Sargent was 39 when he became the second Darren Stevens on Bewitched in 1969, replacing Dick York and staying until the series ended in 1972. His Darren was still the nervous mortal husband of Samantha, still caught between office life and witchcraft. But Sargent gave him a slightly softer, calmer rhythm, a man trying to stay normal in a house where normal never lasted long. His final years were a masterclass in bravery and authenticity. In 1989, Sargent was diagnosed with prostate cancer, a battle he fought privately at first before the disease eventually spread. He passed away in a hospital in Los Angeles, but he did not leave this world quietly. In his final years, he realized that his greatest role wasn't on a soundstage, but in living his truth, a journey that required more magic than any TV script could provide. After Bewitched ended in 1972, Sargent remained a steady presence in the industry, guest starring in hits like Charlie's Angels, The Love Boat, and Columbo. He never abandoned Hollywood, but he shifted his focus toward humanitarian work, traveling to developing nations to help children in need. He never married and had no children, finding his sense of family through his long-term partner, Albert Williams, and his tireless work for the community. 4. Agnes Moorehead. Agnes Moorehead, born December 6, 1900, became unforgettable as Endora in Bewitched, 1964 to 1972. With her sharp tongue, grand costumes, and amused contempt for Darren, she turned Samantha's mother into one of television's most elegant troublemakers. Moorehead died on April 30, 1974, at the age of 73. Her departure remains one of Hollywood's most haunting what-ifs. Agnes succumbed to uterine cancer in Rochester, Minnesota, but the detail that truly chills the heart is the persistent belief that her illness was tied to the 1956 film The Conqueror, filmed downwind of a nuclear test site. She was one of over 90 cast and crew members who later developed cancer. It is a staggering irony. The woman who seemed invincible and immortal on our television screens may have been taken by a tragedy that was entirely, tragically earthly. She endured 2 divorces and never had biological children, often channeling her immense energy into her work. After Bewitched ended in 1972, she didn't slow down, famously voicing Charlotte in the animated Charlotte's Web, proving that even without her physical presence, her voice could still weave wonders. By 2026, her estate, valued at roughly $2 million at the time of her passing, has been preserved through her cherished family farmlands in Ohio. She didn't leave a fleet of supercars. She left a legacy of dramatic excellence that spanned Orson Welles' radio to 1960s sitcoms. 5. David White. In Bewitched, 1964 to 1972, David White played Larry Tate, Darren Stevens' ambitious, nervous, and often self-serving boss at McMahon and Tate. Larry was charming when he needed to be, demanding when money was involved, and always chasing the next big advertising account. White made him funny, sharp, and strangely familiar, the kind of boss everyone felt they had met before. Born on April 4, 1916, in Denver, Colorado, White died on November 27, 1990, in North Hollywood, California. Behind Larry Tate's boisterous laughter lay a life marked by unimaginable grief. In a detail that chills the heart, David's only son, Jonathan, was tragically killed in the 1988 bombing of Pan Am Flight 103 over Lockerbie. David spent his final 2 years consumed by the weight of that loss, a shadow that never lifted. It is a stirring realization for fans. The man who taught us to laugh at the absurdities of corporate life was, in his final acts, navigating the cruelest of personal tragedies. He passed away from a heart attack in North Hollywood just 2 years after his son. By 2026, David White is remembered with a bittersweet reverence. While his estate was valued at roughly $2 million at the time of his passing, he is not remembered for material wealth or a collection of cars, but for the depth of his endurance. He remains the face of an era, a reminder that time changes everything, and that behind every television smile, there is often a soul that has weathered the deepest of storms. 6. George Tobias. George Tobias was 63 when Bewitched began in 1964, playing Abner Kravitz, the tired, dryly funny husband of nosy neighbor Gladys Kravitz. While Gladys panicked over Samantha's magic, Abner usually sat back, unimpressed, as if he had already accepted that marriage and life were strange enough without explanations. His quiet reactions gave the show a perfect comic balance. Born in New York City on July 14th, 1901, Tobias was already a veteran by the time television made him familiar to millions. His final years were a quiet battle fought with the same stoicism he brought to the screen. George succumbed to bladder cancer at Cedars-Sinai Medical Center in Los Angeles. While his passing was a loss to the industry, he faced his illness away from the prying eyes of the press. For a man who played a character constantly bombarded by his wife's hysterical claims of witchcraft, his actual end was profoundly serene, marked by the dignity of a performer who knew when to take his final bow. By 2026, George Tobias is remembered with a warm, nostalgic smile. While his net worth at death was estimated at approximately $1 million, his true wealth was an impeccable reputation as a pro's pro. He didn't need a collection of luxury cars to define his status. In the hearts of the audience, he remains the eternal Abner Kravitz, a comforting reminder that sometimes the best way to handle a world gone crazy is to simply keep reading your paper and hold on to your friends. 7. Casey Rogers. Casey Rogers, born December 15, 1925, became familiar to BEWITCHED fans as Louise Tate, the elegant but often long-suffering wife of advertising boss Larry Tate. She joined the series in 1966, replacing Irene Vernon, and gave Louise a softer, warmer presence beside the comic chaos of the Stevens household. Rogers died on July 6, 2006. Her final years were spent in the quiet sun of Los Angeles, though the end came through a battle with throat cancer. After suffering a stroke a few years prior, Casey faced her health challenges with the same poise she displayed on screen. A detail that truly touches the heart of fans is her transformation from a TV socialite into a real-world pioneer. Few knew that this elegant lady was a competitive motocross racer in her 40s and 50s, famously establishing the powder puff races for women. It's a stirring image, the polished Louise Tate trading her pearls for a helmet and the roar of a dirt bike. Her personal life saw 2 marriages, including a long-term union with television producer Walter Arndt. She found a second act in life that many stars dream of, one where her identity wasn't defined by a script, but by her own diverse passions. By 2026, her physical legacy, an estate estimated at roughly $1 million at the time of her passing, is far less significant than her cultural impact. She didn't leave behind a fleet of luxury cars, but she did leave a trail of dust on the motocross tracks and a golden memory in our living rooms. 8. Sandra Gould. In BEWITCHED, 1964 to 1972, Sandra Gould played Gladys Kravitz, the nosy, nervous, and endlessly suspicious neighbor who was always convinced something strange was happening at the Stevens house. Gladys was frantic, funny, and often right, but nobody believed her. Gould made the character sharp, restless, and strangely lovable, turning neighborhood gossip into classic sitcom energy. Born on July 23, 1916 in Brooklyn, New York, Sandra Gould died on July 20, 1999, in Burbank, California. Her final chapter came quietly following a stroke that occurred after she underwent heart surgery. It is a poignant irony that the woman whose character spent her life in a state of high-strung, comedic agitation met her end in the sterile quiet of a post-operative room. There were no hidden scandals or dark tragedies. Sandra lived a life of remarkable consistency. Her personal life was anchored by 2 marriages, surviving her first husband, broadcasting executive Felix Meyerhoff, and finding companionship again with Hollingsworth Morse. By 2026, Sandra Gould's legacy is defined by a net worth of approximately $1 million and a permanent place in the hearts of nostalgia lovers. She didn't leave behind a fleet of cars, but she left us a character that has become shorthand for curiosity itself. To remember her is to smile at the absurdity of our own neighborhood mysteries, a reminder that while curtains eventually close, The joy she sparked remains wide open. 9. Alice Pierce. Alice Pierce was 46 when Bewitched began in 1964, playing Gladys Kravitz, the nervous neighbor who kept seeing the impossible through Samantha Stevens' window. With her wide eyes, sharp voice, and perfect comic panic, Pierce turned Gladys into more than a nosy woman next door. She became the audience's funny witness to magic, the one person who knew something strange was happening, even when no one believed her. Her final years were a testament to a quiet, heroic strength that the world rarely saw behind her character's comedic hysteria. Alice was diagnosed with ovarian cancer before she even began filming the first season of Bewitched. She kept her terminal illness a closely guarded secret from almost everyone on set, except for her husband and a few close friends. She worked through the exhaustion and the pain of her final months, choosing to bring laughter to millions while she herself was facing the ultimate shadow. Because her life ended while Bewitched was still in its prime, there was no after the show for Alice in the traditional sense. She had already established herself as a Broadway star in On the Town and appeared in films like Genevieve, but Bewitched was her magnum opus. By 2026, Alice Pierce is remembered not for a net worth or a car collection, which was modest at the time of her death, but for her irreplaceable comedic timing. 10. Marion Lorne. Marion Lorne, born August 12, 1883, became beloved as Aunt Clara in Bewitched, 1964 to 1972. Forgetful, gentle, and always arriving with her strange doorknobs, Clara was not the most powerful witch in Samantha's world, but she was one of the most human. Lorne died on May 9, 1968. Her departure was as sudden and quiet as a spell gone wrong. Marion passed away from a heart attack in her Manhattan apartment. The detail that moves many to this day is that her Emmy Award for Outstanding Supporting Actress was awarded posthumously, just weeks after her death. It is a bittersweet memory for fans. The industry finally recognized her brilliance only when she was no longer here to hear the applause. She never knew she had finally won the highest honor of her television career. By 2026, her physical estate, valued at roughly $200,000 at her passing, has faded into history. But her cultural value is priceless. She didn't leave a collection of supercars, but she did leave behind a legendary collection of nearly 1,000 real doorknobs, which she actually owned and used as props. Marion Lorne remains the sweetheart of the 60s, a reminder that even when things get a little muddled, a kind heart is the most powerful magic of all. 11. Bernard Fox. In Bewitched, 1964 to 1972, Bernard Fox played Dr. Bombay, the eccentric witch doctor who appeared whenever Samantha needed magical medical help. Dr. Bombay was dramatic, distracted, and wonderfully absurd, always arriving with theatrical confidence, as if every crisis were just another strange house call. Born on May 11, 1927, in Port Talbot, Wales, Fox died on December 14, 2016, in Van Nuys, California. His final chapter was written at a hospital in Van Nuys, California, where he succumbed to heart failure. For a man who spent his career playing larger-than-life characters, his departure was quiet and dignified. There were no hidden scandals, only a long life lived with professional integrity. However, a detail that deeply moves fans is his connection to the sea. Fox was a real-life Royal Navy veteran of World War II. By 2026, Bernard Fox's legacy is defined by an estimated net worth of $3 million and a reputation for unparalleled class. He didn't chase flashy car collections, but rather the respect of his peers and the love of his audience. To remember him is to hear that booming voice one last time, a gentle reminder that while the smoke of the magician eventually clears, the warmth of the man remains forever. 12. Mabel Albertson. Mabel Albertson was 63 when she first appeared as Phyllis Stevens in Bewitched, Darren's elegant but often anxious mother. She was not part of the magical world, Yet her reactions to Samantha's strange household gave the series a very human comedy. A mother trying to understand a daughter-in-law who always seemed just a little too perfect, and a son whose life never looked completely normal. Born on July 24th, 1901 in Lynn, Massachusetts, Albertson had already spent decades in radio, theater, film, and television before Bewitched. Her final years were marked by a quiet, dignified struggle. Mabel suffered from Alzheimer's disease, a condition that gradually clouded the sharp wit that had defined her career. She spent her last days at St. John's Hospital in Santa Monica, where she eventually passed away from the complications of the disease. It is a poignant irony that the woman who played a character so perpetually confused by Samantha's magic would spend her final chapter navigating a world made increasingly unrecognizable by her own memory's fading light. By 2026, Mabel Albertson is remembered with a respectful, nostalgic fondness. While her net worth at the time of her passing was estimated at approximately $500,000, her true estate was her vast filmography and the laughter she left behind.